let me just say thank you for joining. I think this is the first virtual event that I've been a part of with AppSmart, so I'm super excited, and I know our team is chill. So thank you for joining. We really do appreciate it. I'll just walk through briefly, like who's on the call from CBTS. Obviously, I'm Jamie Pitstick. I am the National Channel Manager for AppSmart. I just started kind of working with AppSmart this year, and hopefully I get to meet more of you. I've met some of you on this call, but hopefully in Vegas, I'll see more of you in person, and we can start doing more together, right? But also with me, I have Matt Douglas, which is our director of our solutions engineering team, our channel chief and sales VP, Rob Messmer, and then my direct boss, Steve Sawyer. He is our director of sales. So that is our CBTS team. Rob, I'll go ahead and kick this off to you.
Okay, and I'm going to make it quick and then hand it over to Matt. Thank you, all of you. I've known many of you with different logos on your business cards, and really excited to see what AppSmart has been doing in consolidating the industry. We're really excited about what that means. It's why I put Jamie Pitstick on the AppSmart relationship from our perspective, because we want to focus on you and invest into you, so and into your partners. So excited to kick this off. We've had a crazy year and a half, but looking forward to seeing a lot of you in Vegas. You know, when I think of AppSmart's model, you know, we're one of the unique three-headed monsters, in that we're one, a service provider, and that's what we'll be talking about today. Two, we're actually an agent of yours out of Michigan, and because we acquired an MSP called Suntel, and we still actually have a book of business with you. And then three, our sister company, Cincinnati Bell, has the marketplace. So we really know your business from all three aspects, and are excited about working with you and expanding what we have. I'd say probably the most business we've done out of all the kind of family of now AppSmart brands, if you will, and distributors is through our relationship with Microcorp. So I know that that's kind of being folded in this year, and excited to probably more openly share the success we've had with Microcorp with the rest of the AppSmart team, because we've really got some good use case examples there. So Matt, if you don't mind,
sure.
As all of you know, you're probably smelling the steaks and the seasoning and getting ready to cook those. And Chef Andy is coming on at 5. I've asked Andy to make it quick, because he does have about a 3-hour version of his presentation, which I'm trying to consolidate him down to like 30 minutes. So if, get a little learning in on who we are, what we do, what makes us special in the channel. Matt will do that. I'll pipe in for
Sure.
color commentary, because I get excited and I can't help myself. And if there's any questions, or Erica, those that have experience with us want to jump in and say, oh, that's true, or hey, that's a bunch of baloney, please do. We want to make this interactive, and just real excited to have you guys.
And I'll echo that too, Rob, that, this, you guys with AppSmart, so much change has been going on, and we kind of see from the outside what looks like this new agenda. And of course, we've had COVID, which has kind of kept all of us down. I've just started going out. So I personally am very excited to start working opportunities, do training sessions, get out in the field, have some cocktails. I'm looking forward to going to Vegas. So thanks for the opportunity here. I thought what we do, and you guys can kind of ask any questions or interrupt at all, but we want to just kind of give a company overview. Just for some of you, maybe not as familiar with kind of how we got here, et cetera, talk a little bit about what some of our successes are, kind of how we win, what kind of we call our 5 pillars, some of our big, kind of the big technology chunks that we do, and then some use cases. So I'll go through it here pretty quick. If you can take anything away from this, and we started this going back, I don't know, Rob, how long ago did we start talking about making people heroes? 4 years ago, maybe? I mean, it's been
That's
a long
right.
time. Yeah. when we first started this indirect channel, we kind of talked about what's our mission, what are we trying to do? And our whole goal is to make you guys heroes. We know we're not always the right fit. We know sometimes you bring us in for opportunities to, let's say, do the Meraki or NASDAQ, but you've already got some other UCaaS solution. So we know how to stay in our kind of swim lanes. We know how to be the right partner to you. We also even know how to say that we're not the right fit. You know, I mean, I've been on calls where I'm 20 minutes in and we're like, we're not the right company. You need to go over here. So thanks again for the opportunity. I personally am very excited to get deeper and more engaged with AppSmart as you guys grow and change. So really, when you think about us, we started 140 years ago, if you would, with Cincinnati Bell. We bought Hawaiian Telcom a couple of years, about 4 or 5 years ago. And so there is still kind of half of our business that is being the phone company in a geographic region, laying tens of thousands of miles of fiber, delivering mission critical services. We're used to delivering mission critical services. It goes a long way into kind of the new services we deliver on the managed service side. And if anything, we talk about when we talk to customers that really telephony is in our DNA. We're used to delivering mission critical services, particularly on the telephone side. Now, CBTS, right, we started about 25 years ago, first as a regional VAR in the Midwest, selling routers and switches and phone systems, things like that. But really kind of over the last 25 years, through some good choices, some good luck, we've now grown to be about $1 billion a year entity, and about 50% of our business is into managed services of some kind into the kind of small to medium sized segment, kind of customers in the 100 to 5,000 employee range, if you would. So we got a rich history, been around a while, and particularly CBTS really grown a lot. And we're going to talk about some of these services we've been having a lot of luck with. This again is kind of another look at kind of our scope and scale, if you would. You'll see that we're starting to even expand globally, and we can deliver some of our services now globally. You kind of see over here, these are some of the key partners that we use to deliver services. So again, about $1 billion a year entity, a couple thousand employees, and continuing to grow. We've been very fortunate. I think some of the things, if you kind of think about who we are, right? What does CBTS do, and what's been our success in the channel? It's kind of been about taking best of breed technologies, best of breed OEMs, and putting a wrapper around it. A wrapper that's about pre-sales, meetings like this, and doing discovery and whiteboarding. If we're the right fit, assigning professional project management teams, subject matter experts to deliver it. Being there on site install, day 2, these kinds of things. So taking a world-class wrapper around technologies and some OEMs, and then building an as-of-service offerings, right? So, we've got several different kinds of unified communications. We're going to talk about that, different platforms, several different contact center platforms, SD-WAN platforms, et cetera. So our expertise is kind of constantly evaluating what's kind of best of breed out there, turning those into as-a-service offerings. And then we're always looking for new stuff. Like we're actively right now in the middle of talking to Juniper. Juniper bought a technology called Mist that's about kind of artificial intelligence. You guys are all kind of hearing more, right, about artificial intelligence, AI ops, and what that can mean to customers, uptime or the performance of their applications, et cetera. And Juniper's done a really interesting thing. We think of applying some artificial intelligence to things like routers and SD-WAN, some offerings there, Wi-Fi, these kinds of things. And we're actively looking at. Go ahead, yeah, Rob. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to jump in. What's interesting to us in our evolution is that as we've become successful selling these best of breed solutions with this world-class wrapper, even in the channel, as we've sold deals like Papa John's, and we've sold deals like Panera Bread and Lids and Claire's through CBTS, these OEMs are now approaching us saying, how do I get into your ecosystem? And now we're gating them off saying, hey, there's barriers to entry because we deliver a world-class solution for our partners, for their clients. And we want to make sure that, one, the technology fits. We also want to make sure that it fits operationally to something that's supportable. And we also want to make sure that it fits into our ecosystem so that we can compensate our partners for it. So
Yep.
we're always evaluating, and it, while we used to be more us kind of looking at the technology, they're now knocking on our door saying, how do I get into your ecosystem?
Yep. It's again, I think that ability to take these solutions, put a managed service wrapper, and reliably and accurately deliver them into customers kind of in the 100 to 5,000 employee range. Now, we want to talk a little bit too, kind of about where our expertise is, like kind of where we win and why we win. Rob mentioned Papa John's a little while ago. We've been really successful in the multi-location world to be able to, like we've done 600 Barnes and Nobles, 150 Donatos, 1,000 Lid stores. It's retail for us, multi-location, bringing together different solutions and being able to solve those problems is really turned into a big strength for us. We're strong on the enterprise side, manufacturing, again, kind of multi-location. Healthcare, we're going to talk a little bit of a use case today about how we're doing some very interesting stuff with a group called St. Luke's out of the Northeast. But healthcare and being able to deliver HIPAA compliant UCaaS, SD-WAN, those kinds of solutions has been a really big strength for us as well. And again, we kind of talked about the fact our job is to take the best of breed OEM solutions and figure out, can we turn these into managed services for the channel that we can all win with.
Yeah,
So
a lot of partners have found that they just have some clients that have an OEM bias, whether that's Cisco or Avaya or whatever it may be, VMware, and in many times they get stuck because some of the other channel providers have their own IP, and so it's difficult to compete when that customer has that bias towards an OEM. And what we do is we've successfully helped our partners not only sell to them with that OEM stack, but also create a sell with motion with that OEM salesperson. So making sure that the Cisco rep in this example gets paid in the solution that they sell. So it actually helps grow the partner's business.
No, that's a great point, Rob, because as we get into larger opportunities, you get into 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 employee companies, suddenly that account manager from VMware, from Meraki, from Cisco, et cetera, Palo Alto becomes important. And so we can actually, bring them into the sales process with you. So it's a win-win for everybody. So absolutely. So kind of why do we win? One, we like to think of ourselves kind of as the Goldilocks of solutions out there for your providers. The Goldilocks story of, this bed's too soft, this bed's too hard, this one's just right. We like to think we're large enough to matter. We're $1 billion a year entity with decades, a century experience in some areas, but kind of right-sized enough and small enough to be flexible, to be nimble, and deliver kind of customer-specific solutions. So being able to be the right size, large enough to matter, but kind of right size enough to be flexible and deliver kind of creative solutions has been a big point for us. You layer that on with kind of the golden rule. I hope you don't take this as some people might think it's a little cheesy, but we really want to kind of treat others like they want to be treated, right? One of the big differences with CBTS is that we actually do, it's going to again sound cheesy, we actually care. We make mistakes. One of the great things about CBTS is when we make mistakes, there's somebody on the other end of the line that cares, that will fix it, that'll prioritize it. Try and do that with the Verizons and AT&Ts of the world, it's a problem, right? So we like to think we're right-sized enough to have the right kinds of skills and to be able to deliver. We work on the golden rule idea, if you would. And then you heard it before, this idea of making heroes, right? We think our job's done properly if we make AppSmart look good, if we make your partners look good, if we make the customer look good. We are not interested in trying to, slam a square peg into a round hole just because we get paid. We'll walk away from a deal if it's not the right fit. So these are the kinds of things that we think have led to success and repeatability in the channel for us. This really is the punchline to the kind of introduction that we're talking about. I've got a couple of use cases I want to go through because I want to talk a little bit about the St. Luke's deal and the Donatos example. But we call this really our 5 pillars, right? Now, we talk about the fact that we started in telephony, right? We've been a phone company for over 100 years. So we were very early on taking things like Cisco Call Manager and turning that into a hosted cloud UCaaS service. So we've got customers on our Call Manager platforms like the state of Ohio. We deliver 50,000 hosted Cisco phones a month for. GE 20,000. State of Indiana 15,000. We've got like a couple of hospitals, one to 10, one the other 20. We're doing one right now with 30,000 seats. It's going to take us a couple of years, but that Call Manager platform, when Rob mentioned OEM bias earlier, there are still customers out there that, hey, 8x8 makes a great product. RingCentral makes a great product. Vonage makes a great product, and they're all going to be successful. But there are still some 50 to 60 million Cisco phones out there in the United States with Cisco customer premise CPE, the telephone systems, that there's a group of those people who still want to stay with Cisco technology. So whether it's Cisco Call Manager or now Cisco BroadSoft, we've been a Cisco BroadSoft shop. We've been a BroadSoft shop 14 years, so way before Cisco ever bought them. And then as Cisco has taken these technologies, they've built a new platform called WebEx Calling. So really anything to do with Cisco UCaaS, whether it's us delivering, our hosted call manager, our hosted BroadSoft, or the new WebEx calling product, we're experts at that. We've got the project management and teams to do that. The same thing kind of goes on the contact center side. Now, we've always delivered Cisco Contact Center, the UCC, E, and X. It's not listed here. They also then, when they bought BroadSoft, got a technology they turned into WebEx Contact Center, kind of a next cloud generation contact center. We also identified a couple of years ago that even though Cisco's got some decent contact center technology, we wanted to bring kind of a Gartner right-hand, quadrant, upper right-hand quadrant partner in. And we actually have a network-to-network connection between Five9 and the CBTS network. And so we also do a number of situations, like we just finishing up a customer. It's a furniture store company out in the Dakotas. They've got 50 locations that we did key system emulation for, a head office that we did 200 seats of BroadSoft, and then they had 40 seats of Five9 because they had some very specific needs about having an omni-channel for chat and email and a whole bunch of new things they wanted to do, and Five9 was a great fit. So those are basically anything to do with Cisco telephony and or then pulling a partner in like Five9's in the right kind of situation. We've got a lot of strength and experience in doing that. Though now the Meraki stack as well has been very successful for us. And this really has been a lot. We kind of talk about the retail situation or manufacturing too. This has kind of been a thing that we kind of talk about, the store of the future or the branch of the future. For those of us who've been around in the industry a while, you look back 10 years ago, people didn't spend a lot of money on their LAN infrastructure. They kind of viewed their switches and Wi-Fi access points and even their firewalls as just an expense, and they wanted to spend as little money as possible on it. Now with the digitization of everything, it's like we're dealing with warehouses today. And it used to be in a warehouse, right? You'd walk around and you'd have a piece of paper and you'd do picking. Now they're moving to voice picking technology where I'm actually wearing a headset and artificial intelligence is telling me where to go to aisle 16, bin 5, and pick up 6 of these. It's called voice picking. Well, the moment you move to voice picking, you have to have a Wi-Fi infrastructure in that warehouse that is just rock solid. So we've taken this Meraki stack, if you would, everything from that edge, SD-WAN or firewall, layer 3 Ethernet switches, access points, cameras. They've got a whole new line of IoT sensors for temperature and humidity and door openings, and it can be linked to the camera. We've taken all that and we can turn that into as a service. And we're finding out that more and more people are wanting to look at their LAN infrastructure as an enabling technology now. They have to have a new LAN and Wi-Fi infrastructure to enable all the new technologies, whether it's IoT, Wi-Fi, et cetera. And we can come in now and deliver that as a fully managed solution. So we take care of, upgrades, of downturn clauses if they close a facility, of upgrading, maybe that, they just added 50 people and they need to have some new technology, or maybe they're bought a new couple of companies and they want to add some new locations. And so this has been a very successful product for us of helping people deliver a managed LAN environment, Wi-Fi, et cetera. Teams, as you're all aware, is just completely exploding. So again, our history of being a service provider, of growing up in the world of delivering mission critical voice, we were one of the very early folks on the Microsoft side to put up Direct Route. Now, that offering, right, on the Microsoft Teams side is now, as you guys, if you run into a number of opportunities, sometimes people are not necessarily even wanting to keep both Teams and their customer premise phone system, or Teams and UCaaS. They're wanting to move completely over to the Teams PBX, where all the users are hanging off Microsoft Teams PBX and all the auto attendants are there and hunt groups, etc. So we've also expanded our service to be able to deliver a managed voice offering inside that Teams world. So even though they would move everything over to Microsoft PBX, we'd be there to handle their moves, adds, and changes, to put new telephones and new devices. That's what the Microsoft devices is right there. So anything you've got in the way of Microsoft Teams, I'm very proud of my sales engineering team, our back office, and being able to deliver it. We'd love to look at those opportunities because we can do a lot of creative things with that. The same kind of thing goes in, if you're talking about, and these really aren't managed monthly services, but as you start to get into customers who are trying to look at maybe moving applications to Azure, wanting to do application development as they move from their kind of data center applications into Azure, or even the kind of the Microsoft security suite, we can start to talk about doing that with your customers as well. And the last part of these kind of five pillars here, really, and they're starting to come together, is this idea of SD-WAN and SASE, that the secure access service edge, which really is about enabling cloud security, right? About having an SD-WAN edge, but then having a secure web gateway, CASB services, zero trust network, these kinds of things to add on to your SD-WAN platform. So we've become known in the channel as absolutely just VeloCloud experts. We're actually the reigning VeloCloud Partner of the Year right now. They didn't do one last year because of COVID. But we've got some 700 customers and about 7,000 locations on VeloCloud that we've done just in the last 4 years. So we're known really in the channel of being able to take complex SD-WAN environments, and whether that's integrating in with customers, security presence, maybe they want to keep their firewalls back at the data center, or they want to maybe put VeloCloud at the edge, but with a virtual instance of some other firewall behind it. Or they want to take VeloCloud at the edge and connect that to Zscaler or Palo Alto Prisma or Checkpoint. We're actually the first service provider to put Checkpoint's new CloudGuard product into the offering here. So we're kind of known as taking an SD-WAN platform and what are the things that we need to do to integrate in with the customer's security presence, because sometimes they've already got a endpoint detection figured out. They've already got CASB, but they want SD-WAN to be able to connect to some of those things. So whether it's doing VeloCloud, Meraki still fits for many customers sometimes, and maybe that's good enough for smaller retail locations. And even though Viptela has had some issues, they made a lot of progress, and so we can do Viptela as well for those folks who I just want to stay with Cisco technology completely. So now when you see the Palo down here, Palo buying CloudGenix, we've always been a big Palo house. We do about $100 million a year in security stuff, of which about 40 million of it's just in Palo equipment. And so we started looking again at Palo about, I'll call it 4 months ago, about when they bought CloudGenix, they've continued to expand their Prisma product. We think that actually there's some new opportunity to bring the Palo line into the same kind of offering. So you're going to see some announcements from us in the first quarter on that. The whole cloud security side, whether we're talking to somebody about some of the cloud services like Checkpoint's CloudGuard Connect, their product in the cloud, their secure web gateway in the cloud, whether it's Cisco Umbrella, whether it's some Microsoft services, et cetera. We've got some deep security expertise and even teams behind us. Like when you think about CBTS, we've got the services like this that we deliver in the channel. We also have a whole other part of our business that's really kind of consulting. And so we've got a very deep consulting bench on the security side that can do penetration testing, do security assessments, a variety of different OEM security products if people need to buy products or software. So whether it's SentinelOne, whatever those things are, we've got some things we can bring the channel there too. Now, you have to make sure, like all the things that we have right here, this is the normal kind of commission that we're all expect, that, 15 to 25% commission on a monthly service that we expect in the channel. You start moving over some of these other solutions, sometimes that's a one-time sale, et cetera, and that can affect some things, but we've got deep expertise to help you there. The last thing I'll kind of add, I want to give a couple of use cases, then we'll be done here, is that, and I mentioned it earlier, when we deliver this is all a full end-to-end solution. So, we hope that it kind of starts with a pre-sale experience that's consultative, or again, we're not trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. If we're lucky enough to get your business, we assign professional project management teams. We assign subject matter experts, kind of dependent on which part of these pillars that we're bringing services together. As we do this, working with your teams, engineering, the customers' teams, et cetera, and maybe they've got some third-party consulting, we typically are building what we call a network design document. It's kind of the idea of the Bible, the blueprint for what this project's going to be. And then everything that we're talking about here has got on-site install. So if we're talking about installing some Meraki equipment or a VeloCloud, we're also talking about delivering the smart hands to be on site to help deliver, plug it in the network, make sure it's working, et cetera. All this is all supported by 24/7, support that starts out of the Midwest here, right? All of this has free moves, adds, and changes. So we're not going to nickel and dime you to death 6 months later when you want to make a change to an auto attendant, or you want to make some rule changes for applications in your SD-WAN. We're not going to say, hey, you owe us $1,000 or $5,000 for a change. And then the big thing is we allow co-management on all these products, and that doesn't affect the SLA. So even though, a customer might get in and make a mistake, and we're there to fix it up, and we're not going to charge them anything for it, but we're managing all of it, making their changes. But if they want to get in, see these things, make changes on their own, we support that. I wanted to give you, there's kind of 3 use cases here. Actually, we're past time, so I'll kind of go quicker. I apologize. I get a little too wordy. This is an example. I want to give you 3 use cases of some of the scope and scale. This one we're very excited in. We got involved about a year ago. Basically, they have about 300 locations. Actually, it's probably a little high there. So we'll call it almost 300 locations. Whole bunch of different phone systems, like 20 different phone systems. And over the course of the next 2 years, they want to move to basically as many Teams users as they can. We think it's going to be about 14,000. And then about 6,000 other kinds of seats, profiles of analog lines or nurses stations, these kinds of things. And then probably about 1,400 SIP paths that are going to go in direct route in their Teams work. So this took us quite some time to kind of pull together, to do the scoping, to work with them. But we ended up beating out 8 by 8, a whole bunch of people here, because of our expertise on the healthcare side, the work that we've done in the past over the last 20 years of supporting hospitals regionally and now nationally. So if you've got any kind of healthcare opportunity that is looking at SD-WAN, looking at LAN infrastructure, Wi-Fi, UCaaS, CCaaS, we've got a lot of expertise to bring to the table there. Donato's, talking about retail. Donato's came to us basically and said, hey, we got 150 stores, whole bunch of disparate equipment. I got different phone systems, different firewalls. I got terrible Wi-Fi experiences or no Wi-Fi experience. And so we came in basically and said, all right, we're going to put VeloCloud at the edge because we can guarantee voice that way. We're going to use your cable and 4G that they already owned. We're going to give you a full LAN stack there. We're going to fix your guest Wi-Fi so that you come in, they've got a branded sign-on page. We've also got rules so that a guest can't tear up my bandwidth. So I got throttling on it, web filtering, right? So, they can't go to the wrong websites, but then they've got a sign-on brand for it as well. So we're carrying that through. We did 6 phones at every store, but did it in key system emulation, which there's still a lot of UCaaS providers out there that can't do that old key system. If you ever worked on an office or a retail where you put somebody on hold on line 1 and you could pick it up on any other phone on line 1, that key system is important. So we showed them really how we could deliver their money call, because they still get about 50% of their calls coming into a store. So this is an example, again, of how we take different parts of the stack, build a custom solution for a customer. In this case, with 150 locations, we deployed that in 3 months for them. And the last kind of use case I'll give you here is again, kind of extending the Meraki, the idea of the Meraki stack, we're seeing more and more folks who are looking at managed LAN infrastructure, firewalls, Ethernet switches, access points, and we're seeing more and more camera work out as well. Meraki's got some really interesting camera technology that, for any of you who would like to kind of take a look at that, maybe another session, we'd love to do that, of where you can take a camera in an area and take a pixel of a door, a door handle, and every time that door handle moves, you can take a picture and send that somewhere else. There's some pretty interesting stuff. So this again is kind of the idea of, hey, we were successful. We designed it, we deployed 5 sites, and this has now grown to 22 sites and continuing to grow through there. So I went a little long, but before I kind of turn over to Mr. Steak here, are there any ideas? Rob, you got any comments? And there are any thoughts or questions from the team here on the AppSmart side?
The comment is we need to reverse the order of these slides. Start with the pot distributor, then you go to the pizza store, and then if you have a panic attack, you go to the hospital. So,
that is a perfect idea.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Matt. I do want to let's we can save questions for as we kind of get cooking on these steaks. I know that I thought I saw Chef Andy join. Andy, are you with us?
I am. Can you guys see me and hear me?
We can.
Sweet.
There we go.
I like it. How's everybody doing?
We're good. I told this crew that we were going to go fast, and we actually went a little late. So
that's all right.
Do your thing.
I can cruise a little bit myself. So I want to start out just saying that this cut that we got, you guys, is unbelievable. So I just want a quick start by saying Wagyu, as most people have heard that term now. Wagyu just means Japanese, or it means cow in Japanese. That's really all it is. The breed goes way back, but they started selectively breeding in the late 1800s in Japan. And what they noticed was certain ranchers would notice that certain cattle that they had would have more marbling to the meat or intramuscular fat. So when I am talking about intramuscular fat, I'm talking about these fine white striations within the steak. Not necessarily like the big fat caps on the outside or anything like that. Marbling is really the softer fat that is contained within the tissue. So these ranchers noticed that meat was a lot more rich and a lot more flavorful and really, really delicious. So they began kind of selectively breeding these cattle. And what they did kind of unknowingly was they took a recessive gene and they bred it to become the dominant gene of the species, or the breed, I should say. So this steak is incredibly special because how did it get to your house? Back in the 1970s, the Japanese actually released 4 cattle for sale to the United States, which is super rare. These cattle are treated like racehorses when you're in Japan. They treat beef a lot differently, a lot smaller portions, and you'll see why when we cook this thing up. It is so rich and so flavorful. You're probably going to want to split it with somebody because it really, really is that tasty. So we got 4 cattle here in the United States, and then started breeding them. Did a lot of interbreeding with Black Angus, which everyone is kind of familiar with. And Black Angus is a real consistent breed of cattle. They can control the marbling levels very easily. Wagyu, a little bit more, a little bit more variation across the board. So when they started crossbreeding, it was kind of like the best of both worlds. You had, a little bit more consistency, and you still got the ridiculous marbling. Now, the interesting thing is what we have here is actually bloodlines that have stayed pure from those original cattle that came. So there was 4 in 1976, I think. and then another 4 that came in later in the early 90s, and then about 36 cattle that came over in the late 90s. So all of the Wagyu that we have in the United States comes from less than 50 head of cattle. These are kept pure. So this is 100% Japanese genetics raised in Texas. And it's really, really special because this steak is as close to a Japanese A5, which is the highest rated steak you can get, as I've ever seen. And it came out of Texas. So we're doing really cool things with breeding in the United States and starting to find some of these extraordinary cuts. And I am so excited for you guys to try this because I would imagine everybody here has had a New York strip. That's what this is. The New York strip, for those of you who don't know, is the larger side of a T-bone or a porterhouse. So you have the New York strip on one side and then the tenderloin on the other side. This is, in my opinion, the best part of the T-bone. So as far as, I don't know if anybody's drinking out there, having cocktails with this or wine or whatever. One thing I will say, with the richness of and fattiness of this cut, the best wine to pair with this is going to be a really big, bold red. I love cabs for this. One of the reasons is the cabs, the tannic structure, the tannins in the cab, will actually grab onto the fat molecules and strip them from your palate. So as you're eating this, take a bite, take a sip, and every time you go back to the steak, it's like experiencing the first bite all over again. It's really, really awesome. So
strip the fat from our bodies too, Andy.
Yes, if you drink enough cab, I think it's several gallons per day.
Okay, nice. Didn't know that.
No, it does not, unfortunately. As I can say, I drink a lot of red wine, and definitely doesn't strip my fat. That's for sure. Yeah, but it is awesome to pair with. If you're not a wine person, the beers that I like to go with this, I really like light European styles, Helles, Pilsners, Kolsch. Those are 3 really good options. A little bit sweeter on the malt build of those. It works really well again with the richness of this. Now you can also go the other direction and go with a darker beer. One of the things is we're going to cook this steak on cast iron. We're going to put a really good sear on it. So when you're working with a darker beer, the malts that are used to make dark beer are actually toasted. And so those toasted notes plus the sear that we're going to put on this really work well together. So your porters, your stouts, that kind of thing, also really good with a steak. If you're not a beer person or a wine person and you drink spirits, I am a sucker for bourbon with a steak. For a very similar reason as the dark beer, bourbon is aged in charred oak barrels. And so that kind of charred, smoky flavor works really well with the steak. You can do it on the rocks if you want a cocktail. I'd say an old fashioned, a little bit of the citrus notes, a little bit more brightness on there. Really, really, really good. So, and at any point, if you guys have questions, either fire them out, put them in the chat box there, and I will try to pay attention and read them if possible. If you see me looking down here, it's because my computer's down here and my camera's up here, so I'm not ignoring anybody. All right. So first of all, I have had this steak out at room temperature for probably about a half hour. One of the reasons I want to do that is I want the whole thing at the same temperature when I get it in the pan. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we're going to do in the pan and that whole process. But if you're cooking along with me and yours is still in the fridge, definitely take it out, get it on the counter. It is completely safe to leave beef out for half an hour, something like that. Would not recommend it with chicken or pork, but beef, because of the makeup of the meat, it actually fends off bacteria quite well. So you can do that. We are going to use this rub which I believe you guys got the rub, right? Yep, thumbs up. Okay, cool. So this is one of my absolute beef. If you're not a fan of it for any reason, I would say season this with just straight up salt and pepper. I like to use a thicker kosher salt and some 16 mesh pepper or just coarse ground. Black pepper works really well. One of the reasons I really like this rub for beef is there is not a ton of sugar in it. Sugar, for one thing, when you're putting a sear on a steak and you have a rub on it that has a lot of sugar content, you'll actually burn the sugar, and that gives off sort of an acrid off flavor that you really don't want. So I try to go with rubs where sugar is not the top ingredient for sure. And second of all, I love the taste of beef. To me, I don't need to add sweetness to it. And you'll see, again, this is going to blow your mind. Like, the flavor of this is going to be different from any steak that you've had, but the richness and all of the complexities, it's all there. So, yeah. And I noticed there was a question that came up about grilling this, cooking this. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do. And that is, I love cast iron. There is nothing better out there for putting a good sear on a steak than a cast iron pan. I have watched, I don't know, hundreds at this point of videos comparing different methods for how to cook steaks. And inevitably, when they do blind taste tests and everything, the cast iron always wins out. One of the reasons it wins out is something called the Maillard reaction. So that's when the heat from the pan reacts with the amino acids and the natural sugars that are in the steak, and it actually creates a chemical reaction that will give you all sorts of different flavors. So you might get a little bit of smokiness, nuttiness, sweetness is certainly a part of it, but that's really where you're getting your flavor. So cooking in cast iron, very important. The other thing I like to say, if you want to do it on the grill still, you can have the best of both worlds and just bring your cast iron pan out. If you're doing charcoal, what I do is I set up my charcoal grill with all of the charcoal to one side. So I have a hot zone and a cool zone. So if it does get too much, I can pull it off of there. If you have a propane grill, I would say put it somewhere between 400 and 500 degrees. And you'll be good to go. Put the pan right in there and just be careful when you touch it. Definitely get yourself some gloves. And then if you're using like a Traeger or something like that, I would definitely say, as long as that Traeger gets over 400 degrees, I do the same thing there too. Get it in there 500 degrees and get your sear on. You can also just do it right in your kitchen, which is pretty fantastic. So, another reason I love using cast iron, especially with Wagyu, is there is so much fat and good fat in here, and it renders really quickly. You'll notice if you pull this steak out and you leave it on the counter, that fat starts to render at a lower temperature. Do you remember when I was talking to you guys about kind of the generations of building up these cattle by selectively breeding them? One thing they did is they changed the chemical composition of the marbling. So now, like with Wagyu, that marbling fat is actually higher in unsaturated fat than it is in saturated fat, meaning it has a lower melting point. Some people will claim it's healthier for you. I'm not going to make that claim publicly, but I will say that it is closer to like salmon as far as the fat is concerned and how it reacts to heat. So definitely, when you get that in the pan, that fat's going to render. And I actually like to baste with some butter and some herbs. So we will be using rosemary, thyme, and garlic in addition to some butter. And that's all going to mix with the rendered fat and the seasoning. We're going to create an awesome pan sauce for it. So first things first, let's season this thing. So I am going to do that. I do want to give you guys a tip on seasoning. Anytime you're seasoning anything, you want to stay up high, higher than you think you should be. So with a steak, I go about a foot above it, and then just shake evenly to coat over the top. And you don't have to be afraid to use some seasoning on this thing. It's gonna taste awesome. So I'm gonna flip it over. I'm gonna do the same thing. There you go. And then one thing that I like to do is, so I don't waste any of this awesome rub, I actually just take my finger and scrape it in towards the steak, and then I just roll it and coat the sides. So you have 360-degree coverage, and it's looking awesome. So I'm going to let this sit on here for a couple minutes. What that does is it brings some of the water content to the surface of the meat. So we don't want water in our steak. If you take a bite of steak and it's super juicy, that is rendered fat that your mouth is perceiving as juiciness. It is not water. So through osmosis, the salt will begin to pull water to the surface, and we'll start to see that. So it won't be in the steak anymore, at least a little bit of it. Now, you can certainly salt this overnight. Some people do that. I don't think that you need to do that with a cut like this. Again, this is such a special, flavorful steak. It doesn't really need a lot of help. So this is a very simple preparation for this, but you can certainly use this with any steak that you're doing. So we're going to let that sit for a few minutes. And then while we're waiting, first of all, is there any questions so far?
I got a question.
Yet. Yeah.
Does it have to be a specific cast iron skillet, or can it be, your typical skillet?
It's your typical skillet. I mean, seriously, a $20 Lodge that you can get at Target or Walmart or whatever. There's nothing special about it. That's the beauty, is the pan really just has to be cast iron. It does not have to be fancy at all. So definitely. I did see one other question. Let's see. I got to open up the chat here. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. I think the question was, I'm having a hard time seeing them, but I thought the question was dried rosemary and thyme or fresh. I always advocate using fresh. Most of the grocery stores now are pretty good about pre-packaged fresh, so I always get actual rosemary and thyme. I don't like to use dried stuff. It's just not going to give you the flavors that you want. You're looking for the oils that exist in those herbs. Yeah, so definitely go fresh on that. And then somebody also asked, do you finish this off in the oven? This is such a thin cut, we're not going to even get that far. So we're going to get the sear on, and I'm going to actually temp it with a instant read thermometer, which I'm going to talk about that really quick, and then we'll definitely get cooking. So instant read thermometer is hands down the most important tool in the kitchen. You can take away all my other stuff, but if I have this, it's going to be an awesome, awesome meal, even if I'm cooking on live fire in the backyard. The reason is I know exactly what temperature my meat is at any given time, and you will never undercook or overcook anything ever again if you know where this is. So you don't necessarily have to go all out. This is a ThermoPen from ThermoWorks. This is kind of the industry standard. They're right around $100 for one of these. If you don't want to spend that kind of money, there are certainly cheaper versions on Amazon and stuff that you can get. As long as you have something that's giving you an accurate temperature, that's all you need. I'm also going to talk a little bit about doneness. So for this steak, I'm shooting for medium rare. Now, the easiest way to remember your steak doneness chart is if you can remember that 120 degrees equals rare, you can get the rest of it because it's just 10-degree increments up. So 120 is rare, 130 is medium rare, 140 is medium, 150 is medium well, and 160 is well done. Just 10-degree increments. The other thing I will say is I'm going to pull the steak off of the pan when I start seeing right around 125. The reason for that is there is some carryover that happens. So if I pull it off at 125, chances are it's going to rise somewhere between 5 and 8 degrees, and that's going to put me right in that perfect medium rare zone. If I were to pull it off at 130, I'm going to be closer to medium. So just another thing to think about. And also, if we were dealing with a thicker cut, I would say anything an inch and a half or larger thick, I definitely suggest a reverse sear where you actually cook the steak at a low temperature and get it almost to the point where you want it, and then at the very end put on the sear. That works really well. You could also do a typical like restaurant prep with that, like we're going to do here. Put your sear on and then finish it in the oven for five or so minutes. But with this steak, it's going to cook really quick, and we're going to do it right in the pan. So I do want to talk about one other thing before we move over to the pan. I like to use grapeseed oil in the pan. Couple reasons why. Grapeseed oil has a higher smoke point than a lot of other oils, and it's also completely neutral. So I'm not imparting any other flavors into the steak. Essentially, I try to avoid using olive oil. Olive oil can burn fairly easily, and it also has a pretty strong flavor that will, permeate the steak. If you don't have grapeseed oil, I really like canola oil, vegetable oil. Those are very good, neutral, high smoke point oils. Avocado oil has a very high smoke point. It does have some flavor associated with it, but if you don't mind the flavor as it pairs with the steak, not a big deal. I have had some people use coconut oil. That would not be my favorite, but yeah, one of the three main that I use all the time is grapeseed, vegetable, or canola. So, and I just literally put like a teaspoon drop in and then take a paper towel and rub it on the inside of the cast iron evenly. And that's all you need. We're not deep frying this thing. We just want a little bit so that the steak doesn't stick to it. All right. That being said, we want this pan somewhere between 400 and 500 degrees. So for me, I know that this is an electric stove. So for me, I know that like somewhere in between 6 and 7 is exactly that temperature. Those of you who are using gas stoves, usually just crank it. You're going to want it on high. They do kick off a little bit less heat than the electric ones. So it's just about kind of getting used to your setup and how it works. Again, if you are outside cooking on charcoal and stuff like that, you'll be able to kind of tell when you get the grapeseed oil in, you'll start to see some small wisps of smoke come off the pan, and you know it's ready to put in at that point. All right, so real quick, I'm going to quickly reset this camera so it's closer to the stove so you guys can see exactly what I'm going to do. And I will be right back. And again, if you guys have any questions, think of them, and then, yeah, let me know. Hold on one second.
And if you guys do have questions, a majority of you guys can unmute yourselves and speak if you'd like, instead of typing them in the chat, if that's easier for you. Just throwing that out there.
By the way, with all this food thrown around, I had to get a couple appetizers going. So feel free to eat and drink.
What's your perspective on butter, and at what stage or if would you include butter, on the steak, on the top, or in the pan? What are your thoughts on that?
I am going to show you. So I love using butter. I do make compound butters from time to time, which are really good. We are not going to do that in this steak. Again, this steak is so rich to begin with. You don't need much extra. But I'm going to put probably 3 to 4 tablespoons in the pan. And then we're just going to get that liquid, and we're going to braise the top of it with that liquid. Now, that liquid will consist of the butter, the seasoning. It's going to have the herbs. It's going to have the rendered beef fat. So you are imparting some of that flavor into the steak. But better than that, you're creating a pan sauce for the end, which I will show you that. We're actually going to slice the steak up and then pour the pan sauce over the top. And it's pretty ridiculous. It's really, really good. So, but yeah, on more butter stuff, if you want to make a compound butter, it's the easiest thing ever. I always start with unsalted butter so that I can control the salt level. But you can throw herbs, spices, whatever you want in there, and just melt the butter and mix it up. And then I usually take like a piece of plastic and throw it in there, and then kind of shape it and throw it back in the fridge. So you can just slice it when you're done. It's really, really great. All right. I think we're getting close. I'm waiting to see some small wisps of smoke here. The other thing I want to talk about is this steak is incredibly well trimmed. They took a lot of that fat off the fat cap, but there's still a little bit here and still a little bit on the end right here as well. So what I'm going to do when I get this in the pan, I'm going to hit those areas first. I want to render some of that fat down so that it mixes in with the butter and the mixture of herbs and everything else. So if you have any fat, like noticeable big chunks of fat on there, get those into the pan first and start rendering a little bit. And you'll notice they'll turn kind of a golden brown color, like we were talking about with that Maillard reaction. You're getting a ton of flavor, and it's going to be delicious instead of being kind of chewy and gross. So, all right. You guys can see the pan is just barely starting to smoke a little bit. So like I said, I'm going to take and just kind of set this piece of fat in the center. And it doesn't take long, you know, probably 30 seconds or less, just to get a little bit of color on there. And then I'm going to turn it on its side. And give this side a little bit of love as well. You guys can see some of the color already, and that's just going to continue to darken as we cook here. Okay. I think we've got a good start on that. So once I get this face down, one thing I want to do is gently push it into the pan. Like I said, I want that sear all over the surface. That's one of the reasons that cast iron is so awesome, is you get that crust that develops across the entire steak. So I'm going to leave this on with nothing else in the pan for about a minute. I'm going to get that process started. And then we're going to add our butter. And then we'll start basting.
Hey, Andy.
Yes.
What's your bourbon preference?
Oh,
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, so many different. I love anything by Buffalo Trace. So any of the brands that Buffalo Trace has, if you can't find Buffalo Trace, there's a couple really. There you go, Blanton's Skid Blend. So if you've got Blanton's, drink Blanton's. That would be a perfect, absolutely perfect bourbon to have with a steak. If you really want to have a fun experience and you can get your hands on a Stag Junior, that is the most powerful bourbon
Yeah, that too.
out there, and it's like bourbon concentrate. I think it's 120 proof or more. I think it might even be 130. So yeah, definitely that. Yeah, so many different ones. If you want something a little bit sweeter, Larceny or Weller Antique 107. That's a wheated bourbon, and I really love those with steak as well. So
Cool.
I'm guessing, do you have a good collection going over there?
My husband does. So he's nodding his
love it.
head every time you're saying one. He's like, "Yep, got it. Yep, got it."
Yeah. E.H. Taylor, another one that is absolutely dynamite. If we're gonna go with some of the more rare ones, Eagle Rare, yet another one that I absolutely love. So
Oh yeah.
I could drink bourbon all night, but that's a different thing.
He could too.
I love it. So we've been on this side for about 2 minutes. I'm gonna flip this, and look at that beautiful color that we're getting here. It's starting to develop this crust, and that's what we're looking for. So I'm gonna give it about another 2 minutes on this side, and I'm gonna take my first temperature reading because everybody's steak is slightly different. And I will tell you that they do cook differently. Each piece of meat is its own thing. Another super important reason to have the thermometer. So again, I like to lay the herbs on top so that the butter and the fat has to kind of strain through it. The other thing I do is I keep the garlic paper actually on the garlic. One of the reasons I do that is to keep from actually burning the garlic. It protects it. You still get all the garlic flavor. And then when you're done, you have, if you like garlic, which most people do, you have this awesome, like super sweet roasted garlic that you can just kind of pop out and eat as a fun little snack. All right. So we are about a minute and a half on this side. And I'm giving you guys some times, just because I know not everybody has a thermometer, so you'll be able to kind of ballpark it. But again, the best way is to actually get a thermometer and know what you're working with. So 2 minutes per side. I'm gonna take a reading right in the middle, and right now I'm at about 100 degrees on that side. A little bit less on that side. 110 on this side. So, and you're not going to have a consistent number across the entire steak. But what I'm shooting for is kind of the dead center, thickest part of the steak. I want that to be at 125 degrees so that I can pull it, let it rest, and it'll come up to that perfect medium rare. Okay, we got 2 minutes on this side. I'm going to flip this, and I'm going to baste one more time. And all you do is just tilt the pan towards you. It does require a little bit of wrist strength, but totally worth it. And then just keep basting. It's really, really dynamite. All right. I'm going to check my temp one more time because these do tend to climb pretty quickly. Yep, we're about 10 degrees higher than we were. Yeah, we're getting mighty close. So I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds. And then I am going to get this thing off of here and let it rest. So I'm going to talk a little bit about resting the steak here in just a second. Super, super important. But we should be just about right where we need to be here with this. Another thing I should mention too is I've had a lot of people talk about touching the steak to find out how done it is. And that can work fairly well with choice cut Black Angus, with even prime sometimes. But the more marbling you have in a steak, the softer it is for longer. So you could cook this steak well done, and it's still going to be insanely juicy, and it's going to feel soft. So the whole like touch your finger, feel your hand thing goes out the window when you're working with Wagyu. Just another reason to get yourself an instant read thermometer. All right, I am going to set back up where we first started. So give me about 30 seconds, and I'll be right back with you guys.
Brittany, you get bonus points for having video on the whole time. Maybe Gabby was saying for our next event, we'll get maybe thermometers, but maybe we'll send you a instant thermometer since you were
I like it.
on
Hey,
video.
I would be on video, but I'm not able to.
Come on, Jeff.
That's just excuses. That's just excuses.
I bought one of the instant thermometers the last time you did your deal, Andy. I went through your program like I got to have one of those.
And have you been using it?
All the time. It's fabulous.
And you haven't cooked anything bad since, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but
He was also using it when he got sick. He was wondering what his temperature was.
there you go. Exactly.
I've actually done that, especially, COVID scares here and there. That's how accurate these are. I'm like, nope, still good.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
Not about this cooking, but
Yeah.
with the instant read, if you're using a smoker,
Mhm.
like I have a Traeger.
Yep.
And I have the Traeger instant read, which tends to take a little bit longer than what I like because it releases a lot of the. So is there one like the one that you have? Is that better? You think that
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. So this is 3 seconds. I will have a temp. They are actually discontinuing this model and introducing a 1 second version, which is kind of reminds me of 7 second abs, if anybody remembers that. But it's 3 seconds. Let's bring it down to 1 second, I guess. But anyway, yeah, super important that you're getting an accurate read and it's not chasing the whole time trying to find it. The other thing that I really like about these is like you open this thing up and it comes with a certificate of the person who did all the testing to make sure it was absolutely perfect. I trust this more than any other thermometer. So I actually, on your Traeger, if you're using the thermometers that come with, the probes that you put in, you can adjust your probes up or down, I think 15 to 20 degrees in either directions to calibrate them. And so I use this as a calibration tool for my other thermometers, so I know that it's absolutely perfect. Yeah.
And I did privately message you. Is that a Meat Church shirt?
It is. So I'm actually one of 64 Meat Church ambassadors in the world. So I absolutely swear by their stuff. I really, really love it.
Same here. I'm not an ambassador, but I do have all the rubs.
It's good stuff, isn't it? And Matt is just the biggest sweetheart ever. He's such a good guy. So yeah, I really like that. Check out Meat Church for all your barbecue rub needs. They're really awesome. So okay. Real quick, I want to talk about the importance of resting. If you don't listen to anything I have told you this entire time, this is one of the most important things. If you remember this, you'll be all right. When you're done cooking your steak, it is so important to give it at least 5 minutes to sit and rest. The reason being is all of that intramuscular fat, all of that marbling has turned to liquid inside of that steak. If you were to cut it immediately, all that liquid spills out. If you just give it 5 minutes, a lot of that muscle fiber will start to reabsorb that rendered fat. And that's how you get a deliciously juicy and tender steak. So there was a comparison done, and it's somewhat of a study, where they took 4 steaks that were identical. They came from the same animal. They were the same cut. They cooked them the exact same temperature, everything. The only difference was how long they waited before they cut into the steaks. And then they weighed the steaks to see how much weight had been lost, how much juice had ran out. So the difference between cutting into a steak immediately and waiting just 5 minutes was 20%. You can lose 20%. 1/5 of the weight of your steak will run out onto the cutting board. The difference between 5, 10, and 20 was like 3 to 4%. It was almost negligible. So I am also a fan of eating. So most of the time, 5 minutes is all it needs. The bigger the steak, the bigger the cut of meat, the longer the rest period needs to be. So when I'm doing a brisket, like I'm going to do this weekend, a 17-pound brisket, I will rest for 2 to 6 hours and just let that thing slowly reabsorb those juices. So with steaks, though, most of the time, 5 minutes is all you need. If you're doing like a super thick tomahawk, 2.5-inch, ribeye, maybe give it 10. But yeah, so I'm going to slice into this and show you guys a fun thing to do. So first of all, we'll zoom in on this here. All right, so the number one thing I want is, can you guys hear that little scrapey? We've got an awesome crust built up on this thing. So that's going to provide an awesome bite. So I'm going to slice this, and then finally, we're just going to take what's left in the pan that we cooked it in and dump it over the top. Very important when you pull the steak off of the heat to let it rest, get that pan off of the heat as well and let that sauce kind of cool down a little bit. So with these steaks, if I'm having somebody over and I want like more of a fancy presentation, sometimes I'll slice it. My wife absolutely hates it. She's like, do not slice my steak. But if you're trying to impress somebody and go, hey, you wanted your steak, medium rare, I'm just proving to you that I know exactly what I'm doing. So if you look at that, that is absolutely textbook medium rare. Perfect, dark pink. Thank you. So then we're going to come in behind it with this pan, and my personal favorite part, and just put some of this sauce on it. So you can actually dip your steak in that sauce. If you have any other sides, vegetables, things like that, the sauce is awesome for dipping those in as well. But there you have it. That is my absolute favorite way to prepare Wagyu. And like I said, you can definitely do it on a grill if you want, but it's incredible even right on your kitchen. I'm somebody who, if I can cook outside, I'm going to cook outside. But this is so incredible that it doesn't even matter.
Nice.
Are there
Thank
any
you,
other
Andy.
questions? Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna take a bite. See how we did. Mm-hmm.
Andy, what's the knife that you were using? What brand is that, or what? Do you have a preference of knife? I would assume.
So I really like Wusthof.
Hmm.
I have a bunch of Wusthof stuff. I also have some Miyabi, which is the Japanese brand. Some of my Japanese blades, I really like those as well. This was a gift from my lovely wife, and I don't know that I would have ever bought it myself. This was a limited run that Wusthof did last year. So this is the Aeon series. So the handle on this thing is actually made out of like 3,000-year-old bog oak that they pulled up somewhere in Germany. And then it has this special coating on it where it stays sharp a lot longer. It's super durable, so it's like a diamond-like coating. So this one was a little ridiculous as far as the price goes. But any of the regular Wusthof stuff, just their classic line, it's unbelievable. The stuff is bulletproof. Most of the chefs that I know use Wusthof. If they need Japanese stuff, they'll go Miyabi or Shun. So, yeah, great question.
I think Andy, there's nothing Andy uses that he doesn't have a preference on. I'd love to find something. You've got your favorites, Andy.
The thing about it is, I've been cooking. Started in the kitchen with my mom since I was a little kid. Started to really take it seriously when I was like 18 and out on my own. And I realized if I needed to eat, I had to be the one to cook it. So I just started watching a ton of Food Network and trying to replicate all the stuff. So over time, you start to develop these preferences because you've done something so many times with so many different ways.
Sure.
And yeah, and I always say it's a preference because one of the reasons I started getting into teaching like this is I wanted to take the pretentiousness out of cooking. There is no wrong way to do anything. At the end of the day, it's your mouth, and if you are enjoying the food that you're cooking, it's right. I can tell you my preferences and some of the things I've learned along the way, so that you can go for a certain effect. But ultimately, if you're enjoying what you're doing, it's right. Yeah. So also too, if anybody, if you guys have any questions that you think of after the fact, doesn't have to have anything to do with steak. It can be any sort of cooking questions or whatever. Find me on social media. So I spend most of my time on Instagram when it comes to the socials. It's at BBQ with Boderman. You can find me there. Shoot me a direct message anytime you guys have questions. I love talking about this stuff. I love helping people out. If you're in the grocery store and you see something on sale and you don't know what to do with it, let me know, and I'd love to help. So my entire page, I'm also a food photographer and food stylist. So I have a ton of fun on there, coming up with crazy ideas and then cooking them, photographing them, and posting them on the internet. So you might get some fun ideas for yourself if you check it out. I'm also on Facebook, and then my website is bbqwithboderman.com. The other thing I want to talk about real quick is Cowboy Wagyu, where you guys got these steaks from. They offer 10% off anybody who's done a class with me for your first order. So if you go to Cowboy Wagyu, the promo code is BBQ10, and that'll get you guys 10% off. This is probably my favorite cut that they sell. It really is. Has anybody been cooking this whole time and gotten to take a bite yet? I love hearing the reactions.
I've been cooking, but haven't tried it yet.
I just see one message. Holy crap.
I'm almost done.
Oh my gosh, so good.
I love it, Nick. That's great. Well,
hey, Andy.
Yeah.
What is your choice of steak on a daily? I don't say daily, but if you're just going to the grocery store, would you get, and you're not getting, BBQ Wagyu? So, like, is it a ribeye? Is it a New York? What is your choice?
Yeah, so great question. I am definitely in the fat is flavor camp. So if I'm going for a more inexpensive cut, I'm gonna go to some of those fattier. Some of the fattier cuts. Ribeye is absolutely my go-to, 100%. If it's a choice cut or something like that, there's going to be enough marbling in that steak, even at a choice rating, that it's going to be delicious. And there's nothing wrong with, like, Costco they have amazing steaks for the money, and you can go in there and get a 3 or 4 pack of ribeyes. I've got a vacuum sealer, so you can cook 2 one night and vacuum seal, freeze them, and cook them later. That would be the number one cut for me. What's kind of fun is now that we are, barbecue and cooking in general has really seen a gigantic lift, obviously over the pandemic, with people not being able to go to restaurants. So a lot of people are getting into cooking for the first time and being a little bit more curious as to what else is out there. So what's been really fun is some of the cuts of beef that were kind of kept secret from the public are actually starting to come to the forefront. They used to call them butcher's cuts. And one of my favorites is the Denver steak. And a Denver steak is actually underneath the shoulder blade of the animal in the chuck primal. So chuck primal meat is typically a little bit, it's a little bit tougher because it's a lot of working muscles. But this is like a pearl that exists underneath where it's not getting worked, and it's heavily marbled, and it's absolutely delicious. And it's not insanely expensive either. So if you're out and you're talking to a butcher somewhere, ask them if they have a Denver steak. Some places call them, which is the Japanese for it. But yeah, that's a really fun steak. Not super expensive, but really special. A fun cut of meat. Do I have a restaurant? No, I do not. I have been approached by so many people that have wanted to invest in a restaurant or do something like that. And for me, it's not what it's all about. I'm not a chef. I don't call myself a chef. I call myself a cook, because chefs have a whole other set of skills, like, balancing food costs and things like that I don't want anything to do with. I have so much fun creating recipes, and I could definitely go in and work with a restaurant to help jazz up their menu. I've done some of that stuff with friends, but really, I don't know if anybody's been paying attention, but restaurants have not been doing real well the last 18 months. So that is definitely, I do not want to get into the restaurant game. I love teaching, and I love doing, coming up with a restaurant or with recipes. I work with some other brands, food brands, to help them come up with content for their websites and recipes for their websites. And I really have a blast doing that. And then just cooking for people, having my friends over and cooking. So yeah, great questions. Anything else?
Well, if that's it, thank you, everybody. Andy is the star of the show, so if you want to hit him up on, DM him on Instagram, I think is where he hangs out most. So,
Yep.
Thank you all for joining. I look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully next week in Vegas, at least a lot of you. Andy, feel free to come to Vegas if you want. You'll get to see a lot of us. And,
I'd love to. I got to get down and check out some of the restaurants down there. They've been really doing cool stuff.
There you go. So, Jamie, anything else?
No, just thanks for joining, guys. It's been great. Hope to see you in Vegas.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys
This
for
was
hosting
awesome.
us.
Thank you.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
we
awesome.
appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Guys,
Screen
next
free.
week.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Guys.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.